Hello and welcome to this exploring session, and today we are looking at Abraham's Sacrifice by Theodore de Beze and translated by Arthur Golding in 1575. It's actually one of these odd things. I'm just going to briefly quote from E.K. Chambers here, because we don't just know that he wrote it in his translation in 1575, we actually know the exact date. Apparently that he finished it at Paul's Belchamp in Essex on the 11th of August, 1575. So we're only a few days out from the anniversary of this translation. Aren't we lucky there? I'm assuming that was actually on the title title page of the actual printing, but it gets printed 2 years later in 1577. So this is a piece of dramatic culture transmuted from the French to the public in English. We don't know if it was ever actually performed or whether it's just an example of published drama cashing in on perhaps an expanding interest in drama or dramatic possibilities around. We have done a lot of Abraham's Sacrifice type plays, so it'll be quite interesting to see what is similar and what is different in this particular example. And we have various witnesses here to try and battle our way through this text and see whether it holds up or not. Reading Isaac and the prologue today is...
Hi, Alan Scott, based in Suffolk.
Reading Abraham himself today is...
Lois Potter, based in London.
Reading some shepherds and Satan is...
Sara Blake. I'm an actor, writer and director living in Germany.
I almost feel like it was spoilers mentioning Satan there, but never mind, too late now. And reading Sara and the Epilogue today is...
Hello there, my name is Sascha Cooper and I'm a professional actress and performer based in Brighton in the UK.
And I'm your host, Robert Crighton. I will be playing backup shepherds and potentially, who knows, playful sheep. You know, but then again, we might all play sheep. Maybe we should do that.
So we could get barking mad yet.
Yeah. Anyway, we'll move on from that.
Oh, we've started early today.
We have. It's the end of the week. You could sense everyone's a bit demob happy. So. So we're going to dive into this and let the text speak for a little while, probably until the arrival of the shepherds. No spoilers there. So we've got a prologue, then we go into Abraham, talking to Sara and various other bits and bobs before we get to anything like a sense of a pause. So let's dive in first with the prologue.
God save you everyone, both great and small, of all degrees, right welcome be you all. It is now long, at least it seems to me, since here such peace together I did see. Would God we might each week throughout all the year see such resort in churches as is here. Ye gentlemen and ladies, I ye pray, give ear and hearken what I have to say. To hold your peace alonely I require, what we knew, some will say, by that desire. We neither can tell, nor will away with that, but yet you must, or else I tell you flat, that both of us our labour lose together, in speaking, I and you in coming hither. Wherefore I crave but silence at your hand, my words with patience for you to understand. Both great and small alonely do but hear, and I will tell you strange and wondrous gear. Wherefore now hearken, for the thing is great, whereof I mind this present time to treat. You think yourselves perchance to be in place, where you as not be not, now as stands the case. For Lausanne is not here, it is far hence, but yet when needs require, I will dispense with all of you, that hence within an hour, each one may safely be within his power. As now this is the land of Palestine. What? Do you wonder at these words of mine? I say yet further to you, see you well, you place. It is the house wherein doth dwell a servant of the living gods, whose name hight Abraham, the righteous man, the same, whose lively faith have won him endless fame. Anon you shall see him You shall him tempted see and try, aye, and touch the quick with griefs that shall betide. And lastly, you shall see him justified by faith for killing, in a certain wise, Isaac, his dearest son, in sacrifice. And shortly you shall see strange passions, the flesh, the world, his own affections, not only shall be showed in lively hue, but, which is more, his faith shall them subdue. And that is so many a faithful wight, anon shall bear me record in your sight. First Abraham and Sara you shall see, and Isaac did shall with them both agree. Now are these not sufficient witnessings? Who minds therefore to see so wondrous things? We pray him only in talking to forbear, and unto us give attentive ear, assuring him that he will see and hear no trifling toys, but grave and wondrous gear, and that we will his ears to him restore, to use them as listed before.
Abraham cometh out of his house, and saith,
Alas, my God, and was there ever any that hath endured encumbrances so many as I have done, by fleeting to and fro since I my native country did forego? Or is there any living on the ground of benefits that hath such plenty found? Lo, how thou makest mortal men to see thy passing goodness by calamity. And as of naught thou madest everything, so out of ill thou causest good to spring. Was never wight so blessed at thy hand that could thy greatness fully understand. Full 60 years, and thereto 15 mo, my life had lasted now in weal and woe, according to the course in sundry wise appointed by thy heavenly destinies, whose will it was I should be bred and born of parents rich in cattle, coin, and corn. But unto him that richest is in fee, what joy or comfort could his riches be, when he compelled was, I say, to see, to serve, and worship every day 1,000 forged gods, instead of thee, which madest the heaven and earth which we do see. Thou then, eftsoons, didst will me to convey myself from those same places quite away, and I, immediately upon thy call, left parents, country, goods, with gods and all. Yea, Lord, thou knowest I wist not whither then thou wouldst me lead, or where me stay again. But he that followeth thee full well may say he goeth right, and while he holds that way, he never needs to fear that he shall stray.
Sara coming out of the house, the same house, saith,
In thinking and bethinking me what store of benefits I have had erst heretofore, of thee, my God, which ever hast provided to keep my mind and body undefiled, and furthermore according to thy word, which I took then as spoken but in broad, who has blissed my aged time above all other, by giving me the happy name of mother. I am so ravished in my thought and mind, that as I would full fain, no mean I find the least of all the benefits to commend, which thou, my God, dost daily still me send. Yet sith alone with thee, Lord, here I am. I will thee thank as leastwise I can. But is not yon my husband whom I see? I thought he had been further off from me.
Sara, Sara, thy mind I will allow. Naught hast thou said, but I the same avow. Come on, and let us both give thanks together for God's great mercy since our coming hither, the fruit thereof as both of us have found. Let praise and thanks from both of us resound.
Contented, sir, how might I better do than you to please in all you set me to? And even therefore hath God ordained me, again, wherein time can spent better be, than in the setting forth of God's due praise, whose majesty doth show itself always, above and eke beneath before our eyes.
Of truth, no better can a man devise than of the Lord to sing the excellence. For none can pay him other recompense for all his gifts, which daily he doth send, than in the same his goodness to commend.
And here we come to the song of Abraham and Sarah. They said they're going to sing, and they will sing the You Do Not Need to Sing. We'll swap every 4 lines. It may not. You may have to pass the baton of the meaning of the sentence between you as you go, but we'll go with 4 lines as a unit of measurement. We'll start with Abraham, followed by Sarah, and carry on thusly.
Come on then, let us now begin to sing with hearts in one accord the praises of the sovereign heavenly King, our only God and Lord.
His only hand to give us whatsoever we have, or shall hereafter have forever. It is alone he that does maintain the heaven that is so high,
so large in compass and in space so mean, and eke the starry sky, the course whereof he stablished hath so sure, that I without him fail it doth endure.
The scorching heat of summer he doth make, the harvest and the spring, and winter's cold that maketh folk to quake, in season he doth bring.
Both weathers fair and foul, both sea and land, both night and day be ruled by his hand. Alas, good Lord, and what are we that thou didst choose and entertain?
A lonely us of all the world, and now doth safely us maintain. So long a time from all the wicked routes, in town and country where we come throughout.
Thou of thy goodness drewest us away from places that are given to serve false gods, and at this present day hast wanderingly us driven to travel still among 1,000 dangers in nations unto whom we be but strangers.
The land of Egypt in our chiefest need, thou madst to have a care, thy servants' bodies to maintain and feed with fine and wholesome fare. And in the end compellest Pharaoh, full sore against his will, to let us go.
4 mighty kings were already gone away with victory. I overtook and put to flight anon before they could me spy. And so I saw the fields all stained red with blood of those which through my sword lay dead.
From God received well this benefit, for he doth mind us still, as his dear friends, in whom he doth delight, and we be sure he will perform us all things in due time and place, as he hath promised of his own free grace.
To us and unto our posterity, this land belongs of right, to hold in honor and felicity as God it hath behight. And we believe it surely shall be so, for from his promise God will never go.
Now tremble you, you wicked wights, therefore, which sowed are so thick throughout the world, and worship now such store of gods of stone and stick, which you yourselves with wicked hands do carve, to call upon and vainly for to serve.
And thou, O Lord, whom we do know to be the true and living God, come from thy place that we may one day see the vengeance of thy rod upon thy foes, that they may come to naught, with all their gods devised through wicked thought.
And thus the song ends. Scene concludes with:
Go to, my Sara, that great God of ours hath blessed us to the intent that we, all ours, should for his gifts which he alone doth give, him serve and praise as long as we do live. Now let us hence, and chiefly take good heed we hazard not our son too much indeed, by suffering him to haunt the company of wicked folk, with whom you see we be. A new-made vessel holdeth long the scent of that which first of all is in it pent. A child by nature, ne'er so well disposed, by bringing up is quite and clean transposed.
Sir, I do hope my duty for to do, therefore the thing what we must look unto. is that God's will may be fulfilled in him. Right sure I am we shall be wheeled so trim, and that the Lord will bless him so, as all shall in the end to his high honour fall.
And they presumably exit, though there is no stage direction stating it. What we have is Satan in the habit of a monk entering. You are currently muted, Satan. If you're making noises, we cannot hear them.
I go, I come, I travel night and day, I beat my brains that by no kind of way my labour be in any wise misspent. Reign God aloft above the firmament, the earth at least to me doth wholly draw, and that mislikes not God, nor yet his law. As God by his in heaven is honoured, so I on earth by mine am worshipped. God dwells in heaven, and I on earth likewise. God maketh peace, and I do wars devise. God reigns above, and I do reign below. God causeth love, and I do hatred sow. God made the starry skies and earthly clods. I made much more, for I did make the gods. God served is by angels full of light, and do not my fair angels glister bright? I trow there is not one of all my swine whose groin I make not godlike for to shine. Those lechers, drunkards, gluttons, overfed, whose noses shine fair tipped with Brazil red, which wear fine precious stones upon their skins, are my upholders and my cherubims. God never made a thing so perfect yet that could the maker's full perfection hit. But I have made, whereof I glory may, 1,000 worther than myself far away. For I believe and know it in my thought there's but one God, and that myself am naught. But yet I know there are whose foolish mind I have so turned quite against the kind, that some, which now is common long ago, had liever serve 1,000 gods than one. And others have conceived in their brain that for to think there is a God is vain. Thus, since the time that man on mould was made, with happy luck I followed have this trade, and follow will, come loss, or come their gain, so long as I this habit may maintain. I say this habit, wherewithal as now the world is unacquainted, but I vow the day shall come it shall be known so rife of every wight, both child, yea, man and wife, that neither town nor village shall scape free from seeing it, to their great misery. O cow, such mischief thou shalt work, and such abuse shall underneath thee lurk at high noondays. O cow, I say, such mischief to the world thou shalt convey, that if it were not for the spitefulness wherewith my heart is thwarted in excess, even I myself the wretched world shall rue, to see the things that shall through thee ensue. For I, than who, of all none worse can be, am made yet worse by putting on a fee. These things shall in their time without all fail be brought to pass. And now I will assail one Abraham, who only with his race withstands me, and defies me to my face. Indeed, I have him oftentimes assailed, but ever of my purpose I have failed. I never saw old fellow hold such tack. But I will lay such load upon his back that, as I hope, ere long I shall him make a son of mine. I know that he doth take the true Creator for his only hold to trust unto, and that doth make him bold. Indeed, he hath alliance with the true Creator, who hath promised him anew right wondrous things, according whereunto he hath already done, and still will do. But what for that? If steadfastness him fail to hold out still, what shall his hope avail? I trow I will so many blows him give, that from his hold at length I shall him drive. His elder son, I fear not, and the other shall hardly 'scape these hands of mine. The mother is but a woman, and for all the many that serve him, they be simple souls as any can lightly be. There is a ragged rout of silly shepherds, neither skilled nor stout enough against my wily sleights to stand. But hence I will, and work so out of hand to have them, that unless I miss my mark, anon I will deceive their greatest clerk.
And we'll pause there. Rapturous applause for Satan there.
Really enjoyed that, could you tell?
Yeah. There's some really interesting things that Satan is saying there that I really like. I love the idea that Satan has invented paganism.
Yes, all the different gods.
Yeah, you know, these are all my lures for mankind to draw them away from the one true God. I think that's a fascinating... I've not come across that in any other dramatic literature. I find that a really interesting idea. The idea of, again, appearing as in the habit of a monk, that's not new. That's been around for a while. But being used here in what feels like it's a very anti-Catholic kind of thing, whether that's from the original or just from Golding, who I think is quite fervent, from the intimations of what I've picked out, and that, you know, there's a little more at stake in this story of Abraham. It's not just God testing him, but also Satan is testing him as well. He wants to break Abraham. That's a really interesting dynamic. I'm finding really interesting. Other stuff has happened, but yes, other thoughts before we dance around a bit on what we've just done. I saw a hand from Alan.
Yeah, I mean, the thought I had, you've in part covered, which is, at the time, France would have been staunch papist. And therefore, the sort of the anti-monastic thing seemed a bit odd, unless, as you say, it's been invented out of whole cloth for the UK version, as it were.
Lois.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly when Beze's play was written, but
1550.
1550. Well, I mean, that's right in the wars of religion, isn't it, in France? I mean, there was quite a strong anti-Catholic movement, quite a strong Protestant movement, which was largely snuffed out in 1572 with the St. Bartholomew's Day massacre and the aftermath. And there was a sort of, you know, when Henry of Navarre became king, which is what, about 1589 or something, I think, or 93 maybe, actually. Anyway, up till then, the whole country was really torn apart. What I thought was most interesting, actually, was that prologue, where the speaker seems to think that his audience is going to say, we're supposed to be quiet? Why?
There's something really nice, because he talks about Lausanne, which is where Beze was studying or teaching at the time. So he's literally saying to the audience, right, we're no longer here. We're somewhere else and for the next hour or so, you know, it's all, you know, it's all coming from the words and the sounds, you know, and it's a really great idea. I think someone should pick up on this one. Lois.
Yeah, well, actually, I should have realized that if it's Lausanne, then it's Switzerland. In which case, you know, we've got Calvin's Geneva, and we've actually got a Protestant theocracy operating.
That would make more sense then with the monk thing. Yeah.
And it's a great prologue, actually, as well. I mean, it really is. It's a variation on a theme we've been playing around a few times this week, actually, of what prologues are doing. Of, you know, settle down, be attentive, focus. There's some stuff coming at you now. and things. How are we feeling about Abraham and Sarah themselves as they've come out and basically introduced themselves in their manifesto?
Not particularly well characterised as yet, I feel.
Yep.
The Devil's had the best tunes, as per ever.
I think there's something really nice about the way that Abraham says, I've left everything behind, that I'm an exile from all these graven image makers. And Sarah, the joy, but give me the happy name of mother. You're so delighted to have issue. And the fact that they're sort of one mind, they do these two speeches individually and then they come together and then they sing, is a really interesting formal conceit. Sarah?
Thought they were quite sweet. And
Yes.
I thought that song, could be a really lovely duet. It could be Kenny Rogers and Dolly Parton.
Yes, that's the thing, is we don't know how it's structured. We don't know what musically is going on there. We don't know who's saying what. It's just a wall of text, which is not very clear how that would work musically, because it's the lines are not particularly even.
I think some of them were double lines, weren't they?
Some of them, but even then, it doesn't quite make sense straight off the blocks. But if we're going to pull it to music, odds on we might have to change some of it anyway to make it work, unless we have the music. But then the music's probably for the original version, and how you translate and fit all that together. So there's a whole series of questions about what to do with that that we can't answer. But Lois?
I'm not sure if they were singing psalms at this point in Switzerland, or indeed even in England. I don't really know how old that tradition of psalm singing is, but it could have been done like that, I suppose. I've never really understood how psalms were sung, but I know that people if you go to a C of E service, you do get this. It's a special sort of technique.
I say we don't quite know. We do have some examples of music in drama. We do actually have the music for some. Again, we were looking at this earlier in the week with Shrewsbury fragments, where we actually have more music than we have text.
This is true, actually. Yes.
So I don't know what the convention is. As far as I'm concerned, we'd probably just start from scratch and decide what we want to do with it, and maybe make the odd trim or adjustment of line to fit whatever the music we want to give it. Alan?
Yeah, I was just looking at this towards the end of the Devil's speech there. I don't remember a mention of Abraham having an elder son.
Well, that
the whole point of the story, from what I remember from Bible class through years ago, was that Isaac was the sole successor.
Yeah.
Lois?
That would be Ishmael, I think. The son that he had with the handmaiden, and then I think they were exiled, weren't they?
Right.
Yeah, that's right.
I think it's with Sarah, isn't it? It's as opposed to with the extended family tree. Complicated Old Testament lineages.
Where's the great white whale?
Yeah, I wasn't going to say Cormier. And there's also a nice little coda after the song, is that the sort of the expectation for Isaac as well, that he's this vessel in which to pour goodness. That they can make him the exemplar of a new way of going into the future, and then the moment they say that and they go off stage, enter Satan. So it's really creating stakes. It's a much more dynamic play than it looks off the page. We're a quarter of the way through. We've had a promise of some silly shepherds, so it'll be interesting to see what happens there. I haven't cast who's playing the angel per se. I'm going to ask Sascha if you could read this first angel as we come up to it, because you are free. You may not be the angel later on.
Okay, that's fine.
As it were. So Abraham, coming out of his house again, saith,
Whatever thing I do or say, I weary am thereof straightway, how meet soever that it be. So wicked nature reigns in me. But most of all it me dislikes, and to the heart with sorrow strikes, that seeing God is never tired in helping me, yea, undesired, I also likewise do not strain myself, unweary to remain in due and true acknowledgement of his great mercy to me sent, as well with mouth as with my heart.
Abraham, Abraham,
Lord, here I am.
go take thine only dear beloved son, even Isaac, and bring him to the place which hight the myrrh of God, which being done, slay him in sacrifice before my face, and burn him upon a hill which I will show thee there. Go hie thee by and by.
What? Burn him? Burn him? Well, I will do so. But yet, my God, the thing thou put'st me to seems very strange and irksome for to be. Lord, I beseech thee, wilt thou pardon me? Alas, I pray thee, give me strength and power to do that thou commandest me this hour. I well perceive and plainly now do find that thou art angry with me in thy mind. Alas, my Lord, I have offended thee. O God, by whom both heaven and earth made be, with whom intendest thou to be at war? And wilt thou cast thy servant down so far? Alas, my son, alas, what shall I do? This matter asks looking to.
And with another change of tone, a company of shepherds starts coming out of Abraham's house. Now, it seems that these are plural. They're broken up fairly artificially between Sarah and myself, and we will be alternating when we reach to the song. For the song, when we get to it, it does say the song of the shepherds embedded after shepherds. We'll do every 3 lines alternating.
Okay.
Just so you know, I think it's a 3-line alternation for this one.
I'm
Anyway,
not sure
so
where that
enter a
is,
company of shepherds.
High time it is, sirs, as I trow, we hie us packing on a road to our companions where they be.
Even so, methinks me, for if we all together were, we should the lesser need to fear.
Oh, sirs, I pray you tarry. Will you leave me so behind you still?
Good child, abide you there, or else our master, your father, and our mistress, your mother, may be angry for your going away. The time will come, by God's good grace, that you shall grow and prove apace, and then he shall perceive the charge of keeping flocks in fields at large. What dangers come from hill and dale, by ravening beasts that lie in stale among the coverts of the wood, to kill our cattle for their food.
And do you think I would go with you, though I could, before I knew my father's mind?
Indeed, a child of honest kind and well brought up, for evermore his father's and his mother's law in all his doings to obey.
I will not fail it if I may, to die therefore. But will you stay a while I run and know my father's will?
Yea, therefore go.
And the song of the shepherds begins.
So, am I starting?
Yes, please.
Okay. Oh, happy is the wight that grounds himself aright on God and make him his shield.
And lets the worldly wise, which look about the skies, go wander where they list in field.
No rich ne poor estate can puff or yet abate the godly and the faithful heart.
The faithful goeth free, although he martyred be 1,000 times with woe and smart.
The mighty God him leads in chiefest of his needs, and hath of him a special care.
To make him to abide, even at the point to slide, when worst of all he seems to fare.
Whereof a proof we see, our master well may be, for why the more him men assail,
And urge on every side, lest fear in him is espied, and less his courage doth him fail.
he left his native soil, hard famine did him foil, which drave him into Egypt land.
And there a king of might took Sara from his sight, unjustly even by force of hand.
But straight on suit to God, the king through God's sharp rod did yield to him his wife straightway.
And Abraham never stayed, but as the king him prayed, departed thence without delay.
And during this his flight, he grew to so good plight, that loath to part away was fain.
Because it stood the case, too little was the place to keep the flocks of both them twain.
There fell a sudden jar between 9 kings through war, wherein 5 kings were put to flight.
And Loth himself, with all his goods, both great and small, away was carried clean and quite.
Our faithful master straight, on news of this conceit, made fresh pursuit immediately.
And having but as then 318 men, did make the enemies all to fly.
And of the rescued prey, the 10th to the priest did pay. And having done each man his right,
Returned home anon with commendation, for putting so his foes to flight.
but another son he had, nor daughter him too glad, which thing when Sara did perceive.
She put her maid in bed to serve her husband's stead, who are, because herself could not conceive.
So Agar bare a son, a 13 years outrun, whose name is called Ishmael.
And to this present day our master's goods array increased passing wondrous well.
Then for the covenant's sake, which God himself did make, between him and our master dear,
Our master and we all, as well the great as small, at once all circumcised were. End of song. I'm just going to pause there. I wasn't going to pause there, but I think it's wonderful. It's backstory in song. I do like that. I love the way that Isaac says, I wouldn't go with you without my father's permission. Will you sing a song while I go and do that? I think that's rather sweet.
Oh God, the temptation to do Blue Bottle.
Yes, resist it. Resist
I
it.
will, but yeah.
The angel is very brief.
businesslike.
We get
Mercifully.
much longer angel Abraham haggling in other plays. That he's straight in there. I find it interesting. Slay him in sacrifice before my face. It's almost like the angel is always there, just watching him, like this terrifying shadow. I don't think that's literally how it is, but just that idea that the angel is always going to be there, waiting for him to do it. That's quite sinister.
Mm.
And following on just from Satan, it's a slight, if we didn't know the story, we might be wondering what's going on. Luckily we do. That's fine.
Which side is he emissary of?
Yeah, it's true. It doesn't say. It's just an angel.
So yeah, the verse style. I mean, it's going to be a tricky song to make work. That shorter line, but it's quite fun, and
It bounces along.
I love that his hands are, and we're all circumcised.
Hey!
My favourite line in the Bible is, and they were fell sore, following a mass circumcision. Old Testament's really fascinated with that whole thing. Okay, let's move forward, unless anyone has anything helpful to say that's not about circumcision.
The unkindest cut of all.
Right. Okay, Isaac and Abraham and Sarah are going to speak in unison at one point. We'll just have Abraham saying those lines in a moment.
My fellows, God hath showed himself to us, so good, so loving, and so gracious. And I can never anything yet crave, no small nor great, but that I much more have than I desire. I would have gone with you, as you do know, to see full fain, but now, behold, my father cometh here at hand.
But it behoveth us to understand that if God will us anything to do, we must straightways obedient be thereto, and neither strive nor speak against his will.
Indeed, sir, so I think and purpose still. But yet, I pray you think not strange that I do take this matter somewhat heavily.
A good heart, wife, doth show itself at need.
That's true, and therefore let's be sure indeed, it is God's will and mind we should do so. We have but this child only, and no mo who yet is weak. In him stands all the trust of all our hope. With him it falls to dust.
Nay, rather in God.
But give me leave to say,
Can ever God his word once said unsay? No, no. and therefore be you out of doubt that God will keep and prosper him throughout.
Yea, but will God have us to hazard him?
No hazarding it is where God doth guard him.
My heart giveth some mishap.
I neither dread nor doubt of any hap.
There is in hand some secret enterprise.
Whate'er it be, it doth from God arise.
At least, if what it were you wist,
I shall ere long, if God so list.
so long away the child will near abide.
For that our God will well enough provide.
Yea, but the ways now full of dangers are.
Who dies in following God needs never care.
If he should die, then farewell our good days.
God does foreset men's dying times always.
It were much better here to sacrifice.
Whatever you think, God thinks otherwise.
Well then, sir, sith it must be so, the grace of God with you both go. Adieu, my son.
Good mother, eager to you?
My son, obey thy father still, and God thee save, that if it be his will, thou mayest in health return right soon again. Oh, my child, I cannot me refrain, but that I needs must kiss thee now.
Good mother, if it should not trouble you, I would desire one thing ere I went.
Say on, my son, for I am well content to grant thee thy request.
I humbly do you pray to put this grief away. These tears of yours refrain. I shall return again, I hope, in better plight than now I am in sight, and therefore stay this grief and woe.
My fellows, we have now to go good 6 days' journey ere we rest. See that your carriages be pressed, and all things that we shall need.
And I'm going to assume that the next lines are the shepherds in unison, but I could be wrong. So, Sarah, if you could shepherdize, please.
Sir, as for that, let us take heed. Do you know more, but only show your will?
On then, and God be with you still, the mighty God who of his goodness aye from time to time, even to this present day, so kind and gracious unto us hath been. Be helpful still, both unto you and me. Deal wisely, howsoever that you fare. I hope this journey which we going are shall be performed happily.
Alas, alas, for little wot I when I shall see you all again. The Lord now with you all remain.
Good mother, God you guide.
Farewell.
God guide and keep you through his grace.
Go on, sirs, let us hence apace.
And we can assume that everybody exits, just to give Sarah time to put back on the horns as Satan reappears.
Is not this enough to make me mad? That whereas I make every man to gad, and all the world to follow after me, if they my finger do but held up see, and therewithal set all things on a roar. Yet for all that, I never could the more this false old fellow bring unto my law, for anything that yet I can procure. Behold, he is departed from this place, God's will full bent to bay in every case, although the matter never be so strange. But yet it may be that his mind will change, or that he shall him sacrifice indeed, and so he shall, if I may help him speed. For if he do, then Isaac shall be dead, whereby my heart shall be delivered of that same fear, lest God in him fulfill the threat whereby he promised me to spill. And if he change his mind, then may I say the gold is won, for may I once so play my part as for to make him disobey Almighty God's commandment or repine, then were he banished from the grace divine. That is the mark whereat I always shoot. Now hie thee, cow. Set forth the better foot, let's run apace, and by some cunning drift foil him in field, or put him to his shift.
And the script says a pause. I don't think we can take that as a sort of Harold Pinter stage direction, just possibly a minor break in the action, maybe a brief interval. There are others which come relatively soon upon, so how we interpret that is a question. I can assume that the speech prefix of Abraham and Sarah is more to indicate they both enter, and that opening gambit was actually just Abraham, so the way we did it actually worked perfectly well. Sarah, understatement of the year. I pray you think not strange that I do take this matter somewhat heavily. I mean, there's something really weird about the way that, I mean, she's being made an accomplice, and I don't think in other versions of these plays that she knows in advance what's happening.
No, she doesn't.
No.
I'm not sure that she does. I think it's rather confusing because you don't know what he's told her off stage, but I think all he said is that we're going on a journey. It's hard to know because the lines could be interpreted that she does know that her son is supposed to be sacrificed, but she seems to believe that somehow she's just upset that he's going away at all, because she says, you could do the sacrifice nearby. You don't have to go all this way. It's as if that's the thing he's told her, is we've got to make a journey in order to do the sacrifice.
Well, that would match other plays, because we have had moments where she basically goes, "No, wear a scarf, and no, don't. Yes, just stay with it. Don't go. Just give him a nice horse, a gentle horse to go with, and that sort of detail."
Because that was really, I found that quite disturbing. Because I thought she knew what was happening, and I mean, she was like, "Oh, this is not good," but like, I would have expected more if she knew.
She's only been told part of the story.
Oh, right.
I think that's right. I mean, it was just it is a little bit confusing the way that comes out. Because I genuinely thought she'd been told there, and was sort of going, but especially with comedy Shepherd's all about. Satan following up in the way we expected.
We do seem to be in the week of the yokel.
Yeah.
third or fourth yokel we've had this week.
Well, I mean, it's interesting with the Shepherds, because we have had silent companions going with them on their journey in the Northampton one that we did a little while ago. So I'm wondering if there is a wider tradition of variations on this, that it does involve shepherds or alternative peoples in more fulsome fashion, rather than just being made up by this chap. So that's interesting. It's genuinely quite different, as well as very similar interpretation of this. We've seen a lot of Abrahams, and they've been quite samey. So this is quite different.
It's certainly the first one I've come across that's had Satan in it. Yeah.
Oh, we haven't had Satan. And I'd like Satan as a into the mix. I think that's really interesting.
Theologically, it's rather interesting, because it's not really quite clear what Satan wants, or what would be the best deal for him, whether it'd be better for Abraham to disobey God or better for Abraham to commit murder. In a sense, either way he wins.
Yeah, that's how I took it. It's like a win-win.
Yeah, I think that's really good. I think that's really a really nice direction for Satan there. We do collect Satans.
They're always fun.
In fact, it's unusual. Sascha's not playing Satan. I mean, that's been our go-to for most of these.
It is interesting for a change, I have to admit.
Okay. Any additional thoughts before we move into the second half of the play? Okay, let's move on. So after a pause, Abraham is off there with all those shepherds. I don't think Isaac says anything for a while, so this may just be between Abraham and the shepherds, and we will endeavour to make the shepherds work. There might be some interesting clashes as we try and figure this out. When we get to the Song of the Shepherds, we'll do eight lines each, rather
than...
Eight?
Oh my God, that requires me counting. Okay.
Yeah. It's or two sets of fours. I just think we should try a different rhythm.
Okay.
I think that works. Okay. Anyway, Abraham.
My children, This is now the third day that we have traveled, making little stay. Here must you tarry. As for me, I will with Isaac go yet further onward still, unto a place from hence yet distant more, which God Almighty showed me before, where I must pray and offer sacrifice as he requires. Wherefore, in any wise, abide you here and stir not hence. But thou, son Isaac, shalt go with me, as now, for God requires in this behalf thy presence.
Sir, sith you forbid us, we will not hence.
This bundle unto him betake, and I the fire and knife will take. We shall, God willing, come again right soon. But in the meanwhile, wot ye what to do? Pray ye to God, both for yourselves and us. Alas, was never white to us.
We will not fail.
Had such need as I. Well, sirs, I say no more, but God be we.
And with you too.
And with you too. It greatly amazeth me.
And me likewise.
And me too, for to see him so dismayed, which hath just stoutly borne all haps that have befallen him heretofore.
To say he is afraid of war, debate or strife or any jar, it were no reason, for we know Abimelech the king did show such honour to our masterward, that he not only had regard to visit him, but he did knit a league with him which lasted yet. And as for household matters, what can he desire which he hath not?
He lives in outward peace and rest, but age perchance doth work unrest.
Of sons he hath but only one, but in the world mo such a none. His cattle thrive in such great store as God doth seem to give him more than he himself can wish or crave.
Nothing ye can so perfect have, but always somewhat is amiss. I pray to God him so to bliss, and soon to cure this his disease.
Amen, say I, if it him please.
Sure, I suppose, howe'er the case doth stand, he hath this time some weighty thing in hand.
And once again we have the Song of the Shepherds. Go, Sara.
As huge as is the world we see, with all the things that in it be, yet nothing is so strong and sure that can forever here endure. Almighty God, which all maintains, can nothing spy that aye remains, except himself. All else each one endure short time, and soon are gone.
The sun with bright and burning beams goes casting forth his cheerful gleams as long as day in sky doth last. Then darksome night doth overcast all kind of things, both foul and fair, with coal black wings aloft in air. And of the moon, what shall we say, which never keepeth at a stay?
Sometimes with horns she doth appear, sometime half fast, now thick, now clear, anon with round and fulsome face, the night she fro the sky doth chase. The twinkling stars above on high run rolling round about the sky, one while with weather fair and clear, another while with lowering cheer.
2 days together match, and ye, them like in all points, shall not see. The one doth pass more swift away, the other longer while doth stay. The one, as though it did us spite, bereaves us of the cheerful light. The other, with his colour bright, doth joy our heart and dim our sight.
One burns the world with heat from skies, with frost and cold another dies. With purple, green, blue, white, and red, the earth erewhile is overspread. Anon a blast of nipping cold makes freshest things look sere and old. The rivers, with their waters moist, above their banks are often hoist.
And pass their bounds with rage so far, that they the ploughman's hope do mar, and afterwards they fall within their channels running lank and thin. And therefore whoso doth him ground on aught that in the world so found, beneath or in the starry skies, I say I count him nothing wise.
What then of him is to be said, whose hope on man is wholly stead? Each living creature subject is to endless inconveniences. And yet among them all, the sun, in all his course which he doth run, beholdeth not a feebler wight than man is in his chiefest plight.
For that he is most wise and stout, is so besieged round about, and so assailed with vices strong, that often he is thrown along. What a fool he is, whose heart thinks to be free from woe and smart, so long as he doth live on mould. But if that any creature would
Be sure to accomplish that desire, he must go set his heart more higher, whereof our master rightly may a good example be that way.
Oh, that was a lovely song. Wasn't that lovely? Lovely song.
Lovely, lovely.
The best I think that can now be espied is for to draw as one aside, that each of us may be himself alone. Pray to God to send our master which is gone a safe return with gladness. Go.
I will not be behind, I trow.
And they exit or do something. There is another pause. I quite liked that. I mean, it is like all of these songs, ridiculously long. But you know, the sun and the moon, they're different.
Yeah.
One's really, really bright and things, and the other's not.
Not.
No, country bumpkin.
You know, they're not wrong. They're not wrong. And they try to tie it into a sort of moral thing, and you know, vaguely sort of works. But yeah, shepherds have been left behind. They've been travelling for 3 days. No wonder Sarah's worried. I always got the impression they just sort of sauntered around the corner.
No, I think
3 days.
Abraham said they'd be away for 6 days, didn't he? And that's obviously 3 days there, 3 days back.
Yeah.
That's right. I mean, anything of that type of journey for these people would have been absolutely treacherous anyway, you know, especially with what they had to go up against, conditions-wise, you know, really, really horrible heat, draft, you know, I mean, the heat wave that we've had is minor, very likely, compared to what they went through. So you can only imagine, you know, not just this whole thing with the surrounding weather of everything, but it's also the fact that they had to keep it really simple, especially with that responsibility of God's will over them all the time. You can only imagine the pressure, can't you?
Yeah.
And you know, and they're traveling in numbers, perhaps, you know, to do most of the journey, and then it's only at the end of the journey that they break off and things. You know, bandit country.
It's kind of that song as well. The fact that it's so simple and so sweet, I think it has extra pathos, doesn't it? Where it comes, because you like Abraham has literally just taken Isaac off to do the deed, but we don't follow him. We don't follow that drama. We actually instead we cut away to this really sort of sweet little ditty, and I think that's quite dramatically, I mean, that's quite clever, isn't it, really?
Well, the shepherds are worried as well. They know something's not right about this. They don't know what. I mean, you know, we've got all the dramatic irony of, so, right, you carry your own kindling, there you go, and I'll carry the knife. You know, and the actual burning stick that will set fire to everything, and that. Lois.
Yeah. I mean, it's quite skillfully done. It's funny because, like Res Publica, it really it breaks each section with a song, a chorus, really. I mean, in the case of Res Publica, it's these 3-person songs that they do at each point, and you know, I think there's a kind of running theme about them. And then here we've got various people singing at the end, but he manages to break it so that there seems a logical reason why they should be singing, you know, and it kind of divides up the action and creates a sort of suspense as to what's going to be happening while they're singing.
Yeah, because the first song is very much about the two characters, Sarah and Abraham, coming together in a sort of unison. The second song, the first song, The Shepherds, is all, you know, the boy has requested them while he goes off and, you know, tries and find his father. He doesn't find his father at all. But or he just sits there watching the song, and there's something. It speaks to Isaac's innocence in that song as well, not just that they're singing for him and keeping him amused. And this one does tangentially connect with things, because they start talking about wise people being assailed by vices and elements, and they're trying to sort of tie this imagery together. I don't know how successfully that comes across or works, but there is intent there, which I think is interesting. So it's all foreplay, isn't it? We're coming to the moment we've all been waiting for. As we go into the last, almost third, last unit of action, or primary unit of action, before we close everything. It's mostly Abraham and Isaac, but also Satan will be joining the mix as well. So let's see how this all goes. After a pause.
My father.
Alas, a poor father am I.
Sir, here is wood with fire and knife ready. But as for sheep or lamb, I see none here for you to offer.
Oh, my son most dear, God will provide. Abide thou here, I say, while I to God a little while do pray.
Good father, go. But yet I pray you show me whereupon this grief of yours doth grow, which doth, I see, so greatly your pall.
At my return, my son, thou shalt know all. And in the meantime, pray thyself here too.
It is good reason that I should do so, and therewithal I will each thing address, that first this wood may be in readiness. This billet first shall gin the order here, then this, then that, shall close together near. Thus all these things are ready now and pressed. My father shall provide for all the rest. And now, O God, I will aside retire to pray to thee, as reason doth require.
And yes, I was just going to say, sorry, I didn't even notice this. I'm assuming this is Sarah back at home. We have a sudden leap of location. No stage direction, hopefully, there, unless it has accidentally been given to the wrong person, but it looks like it's a Sarah dialogue. So we return to the home, jump cut to Sarah.
Dream sequence almost.
I was going to say, I can see a dream sequence happening.
Well, it just feels very, very modern in that sort of jump cut sense, but there's logistics to French staging which allows this kind of thing. So anyway, we jump cut to Sarah.
The more we live, the more we see, alas. What life is that in this world we pass was never woman born upon the mould, that for her husband or her issue could herself with me in happiness compare. But yet I have endured such grief and care these last 3 days since they went hence, that well I am not able my life to tell. Which of the twain hath greater to me been, the former joy, or present pain I mean, which I have felt these last days since they have been away? For neither night nor day have I ta'en rest, because my mind doth run on nothing but my husband and my son. And of a truth, I was to blame as though, in that I suffered them away to go, and I went not with them. Of the 6 days 3, alas, but 3, my God, yet passed be, and yet 3 mo my patience still must prove. Alas, my God, which seest me from above, both outwardly and inwardly away, vouchsafe to shorten these 3 years, I say. For were they much more shorter than they be not days but months and years to me. My God, thy promise puts me out of doubt. But if thou long delay the falling out, I fear I shall have need of greater strength to bear the pain in holding out at length. Wherefore, my God, now grant thou unto me, I may with joy right soon my husband see, and eke mine Isaac in mine arms embrace, returned in health and safety to this place.
And crossfade in a modern theatre back to Abraham, and who's doing a bit of thinking and praying of his own.
O God, thou seest my open heart. and of my thoughts thou seest each secret part, so that my case I need not to declare. Thou seest, alas, thou seest my woeful care. Thou only canst me rid of my disease by granting me, if that it might thee please, one only thing, the which I dare not crave.
Another song than this yet must we have.
What? And is it possible that God's behest and deed should ever be at odds? Can he deceive? Even to this present day he hath kept touch in all that he did say, and can he now unsay his word? No, but yet it would ensue he should do so, if he my son should take away as now. Oh, what say I? Oh, my God, sith thou dost bid me, I will do it. Is it right that I, so sinful and so wretched wight, should fall to scanning of the judgments of thy most perfect, pure commandments?
My case goes ill. O cow, we must yet find some other way to salt this haggard's mind.
It may be that I have imagined it amiss. The more it is examined, the more the case seems strange. It was perchance some dream or wicked fiend that at a glance did put this matter in my head, for why so cruel offerings please not God die. He cursed Cain for killing of his brother, and shall I kill mine Isaac and none other?
No, never do so.
Alas, what meant I so to say? Forgive me, Lord, and pluck me back again from this lewd race wherein my sin gan go. O Lord my God, deliver me from this woe. This hand of mine shall certainly him smite, for sith it is thy will, it is good right it should be done, wherefore I will obey.
But I will keep you from it if I may.
So doing, I should make my God untrue, for he hath told me that there should ensue so great a people out of this my son, as over all the earth should spread and run. And therefore, if that Isaac once were killed, I see not how this covenant could be held. Alas, Lord, hast thou made him then for naught? Alas, Lord, is it vain that thou so oft hast promised me such things in Isaac, as thou wouldst never do for others' sake? Alas, and can the things repealed be, which thou so oft hast promised unto me? Alas, and shall my hope have such an end? Whereto should then man's hope and trusting tend? The sum of all I minded to have said is that to thee I heartily have prayed to give me issue, hoping that when thou hadst granted it, I should have lived now in joy and pleasure. But I see full well the contrary to my desire befell. For of my sons, which were no more but twain, to put away the one myself was fain, and of the other, O hard extremity, both father, I, and tormentor must be. Yea, tormentor, alas. But art thou not the self-same God, which was contented for to hear me patiently, when I did pray to thee so instantly, even in the midst of all thy wrath and ire, when Sodom thou didst mind to burn with fire? Now then, my God and King, wilt thou say nay, when for myself I unto thee do pray? Whom I begat, him must I now deface. O God, at leastwise grant me yet this grace.
Grace? In my book that word I never found.
Some other man my son to death may wound. Alas, my lord, and must this hand of mine to such a stroke against all kind decline? How will it touch his woeful mother near, when of his violent death she needs must hear? If I allege thy will for my defense, who will believe that thou wilt so dispense? And if men do not credit it, what fame will fly abroad to my perpetual shame? I shall be shunned of all men more or less, as pattern of extremest cruelness. And as for thee, who will unto thee pray, or on thy word and promise ever stay? Alas, may these hoar hairs of mine abide the sorrow that is likely to betide? Have I already passed so many dangers? Have I so traveled countries that are strangers, in heat and cold, in thirst and hunger still, continually obedient to thy will? Have I so long time lived lingeringly, now in the end to die unhappily? O heart of mine, cleave, cleave, asunder, cleave, and linger here no longer time alive. The speedier death, the lesser is the grief.
Ah, now is he down, if God send no relief.
Oh, what said I? What intend I? Oh, my God, which didst create and make of me a clod, thou art my Lord, and I thy servant true. Out of my native country thou me drew. How oftentimes hast thou assured me that unto mine this land should lotted be? And when thou gavest me Isaac, didst not thou most faithfully and constantly avow that out of him such offspring should be bred, as should this land throughout all overspread? Then if thou wilt needs take him now away, what should I thereunto against thee say? He is thine own. I had him of thy gift. Take him, therefore. Thou knowst best how to shift. I know thou wilt to life him raise again, rather than that thy promise should be vain. Howbeit, Lord, thou knowst I am a man, no good at all, or do or think I can. But yet thy power, which is invincible, doth to belief make all things possible. Hence flesh, hence fond affections every one. Ye human passions, let me now alone. Nothing to me is good or reasonable, which to God's will is not agreeable.
Well, well, then Isaac shall die, and we what will ensue thereof shall after see. O false old hag, thou makest me soft to groan.
See where my son walks up and down alone. Oh, silly child, oh, wretched men, death oft within our bosoms lodgest him full soft, when furthest off we take him for to be. And therefore right great need always have we to lead such a life as if we fain would die. But wottest thou, my son, alas, what I intend to say?
What pleaseth you, good father?
Alas, that word doth kill my heart the rather. Yet must I better courage to me take. Isaac, my son, alas, my heart doth quake.
Father, methinks that fear hath you dismayed.
Oh, my dear child, it is as thou hast said. Alas, my God.
Sir, if it may you please, be bold to tell me what doth you disease.
Ah, my dear child, wist thou what thing it were? Mercy, great Lord, thy mercy grant us here. My son, beholdest thou this line, this wood, this fire, and eke this knife of mine? This gear, my Isaac, serveth all for thee.
Of God and nature and me though I be, yet is this thing so hard a case to see that even, almost, it is a grief to me.
Alas, my son.
Alas, my father dear, upon my knees I humbly pray you hear my youthful years to pity, if you may.
Oh, of mine age, the only staff and stay, my darling, oh, my darling, fain would I that I for thee 1,000 times might die. But God will have it otherwise as now.
Alas, my father, mercy I cry you. Alas, alas, I want both tongue and hand against you in mine own defence to stand. But see my tears for nature's sake. No other fence I can or will now make against you. I am Isaac, none other, but Isaac, your only by my mother. I am your son, that through yourself hath life. And will you let it be bereft with knife? Howbeit, if you do it to obey the Lord, Then on my knees I humbly do accord to suffer all that ever God and Yao shall think it expedient for us to do as now. But yet what deeds of mine deserve this death? Oh God, my life preserve.
Alas, my son, God hath commanded me to make an offering unto him of thee, to my great grief, and pine and endless woe.
Alas, poor mother mine, how many deaths shall I death give to thee? But tell me yet, my killer, who shall be?
Oh, my dear son, my God, grant grace that I may die now present in this place.
O father mine!
Alas, no whit that name agrees to me. Yet should we be to blame if we obeyed not God?
Sir, I'm ready.
Who would have thought he would have been so steady?
Now then, my father, well I see indeed that I must die. Lord, help me at my need. My God, now strengthen thou my mind, and at thy hand such favour let me find, that of myself I may the upper hand obtain against this sudden death to stand. Now bind me, kill me, burn me, I am pressed to suffer all, sith God so thinks it best.
Ah, what a thing, what a sight is here. Mercy, good God, now for thy mercy dear.
Thou, Lord, hast made me and created me. Thou, Lord, upon the earth hast lodged me. Thou hast me given the grace to knowledge thee. Yet have I not so well obeyed thee, my Lord and God, as duty doth require, which me to pardon loud I thee desire. And whereas I to you, my Lord and Father, have not always such honour yielded rather, as your great kindness did deserve to have, therefore forgiveness humbly do I crave. My mother, she is now a great way hence, wherefore, my God, vouchsafe her thy defence, and so preserve her through a special grace. She no whit be troubled at my case.
Here Isaac is bound.
Alas, I go to deep and darksome night. Farewell as now for I all worldly light. But sure I am I shall at God's hand find far better things than these I leave behind. Good Father, I'm ready at your will.
Was never child that spake with better skill. I am ashamed, and therefore take my flight.
Alas, my son, before thou leave this light, and that my hand do give the unkindly blow, upon thy mouth let me a kiss bestow. Isaac, my son, let this same arm of mine, which must thee kill, embrace this neck of thine.
With right goodwill and hearty thanks.
Ye skies, great God's work, aye glistering in our eyes, which well have seen how God, who still is true, did me with fruit by Isaac here endue. And thou, O land, 5 times to me the height, bear witness that my fingers do not smite this child of mine for hatred or for vengeance, but only for to yield my due obeisance to that great God which hath created me, and all the things that live or move or be, who saves the good that put in them their trust, and destroys the bad that serve their wicked lust. Bear witness that I, faithful Abraham, through God's great goodness, still so steadfast am, as notwithstanding all that human wit can say or think to make me now to flit, in one belief I ever do remain, that not one word of God doth happen vain. But now, my hand, high time it is that thou do gather strength to execute thy vow,
Here the knife falls out of his hand.
that by the killing of mine only son, thy deadly stroke may through my heart eke run.
What do I hear? Alas, my father dear!
Ah,
I am at your will. Am I now well? Your pleasure then fulfill.
Did ever man so piteous case yet find? Was ever any friendship yet so kind? And was there ever yet so piteous case? I die, my son, I die before thy face.
Away with all this fear of yours, I pray. Will you from God yet longer time me stay?
Here he intendeth to strike him.
Alas, whoever yet so stout a mind within so weak a body erst did find. Alas, my son, I pray thee, me forgive thy death. It kills me that thou mayst not live.
Abraham, Abraham,
My God, here I am.
into the sheath put up thy knife, and see thou do not take his life, nor hurt the child in any wise. For now I see before mine eyes what love thou bearest to the Lord, and honour unto him avowed, in that thou dost so willingly thy son thus offer even to die.
Oh, God,
O God,
oh, Lord, a man may see how good it is obedient for to be to thee. The case is fitly furnished. I will go take him tied by the head.
Talking, of
Oh,
course, here of the playful sheep. Bah.
O Abraham,
Lord, here I am.
thus saith the Lord, I promise thee by my eternal majesty, and by my Godhead, sith that thou hast showed thyself so willing now, me to obey as to forbear thine only Isaac's life, I swear that maugre Satan to his face, I will thee bliss and all thy race. Considered rest thou the lightsome sky, and on the shore the gravel dry? I will increase thine offspring more than stars in heaven or sand on shore. Their enemies they shall overcome, and of thy body one shall come, by whom my blessing shall spread forth on all the nations of the earth. By him the treasures of my love and mighty power shall from above be shedded down on all mankind, because thou hast obeyed my mind.
And presumably everybody exits, and we are left with the epilogue, and who segues nicely from being an angel to being an epilogue. It sort of works quite well.
It does actually. See here the mighty power of earnest faith, and what reward the true obedience paith. Wherefore, ye lords and ladies, I you pray, when you from hence shall go again away, let not this true and noble story part out of the mind and tables of your heart. 'Tis no lie, it is no painted tale, it is no feigned jest nor fable stale. It is a deed right one, true of one, that thus God's faithful servant long agone. Wherefore, ye masters and ye mistresses, ye lords and ladies, all both more and less, ye rich and poor, ye sorry and ye sad, and ye also whose hearts with mirth are glad, behold and look upon yourselves, each one, in this so fair example here foregone. Such are true glasses, showing to our sight the fair, the foul, the crooked, and the right. For whoso doth unfeignedly endeavour, as Abraham, to keep God's sayings ever, and notwithstanding all the reasons which his mind allegeth backward him to twitch, doth still refer himself and all his deeds to God, with much more happy issue speeds than he can wish. For there come storms or rain, come grief, come death, come cares of sundry kind. Let earthquake come, let heaven and skies down, let dark confusion overcome all. The faithful heart so steadfastly is grounded, as it abideth ever unconfounded. Contrariwise, the man that trusteth to his own self-wit, therefore thereafter for to do, and standeth in his own conceit, shall find, the more he goes, the more he comes behind, and every little puff and sudden blast of his right course shall quite and clean him cast. Again, how own self-willed nature will him overthrow, and all his doings spill. Now thou great God, which makest us to know the great abuses which do plainly show the wretched will to be perverted quite, make all of us to take such warning by it, as each of us may fare the better by the lively faith set forth before our eye in Abraham, that holy personage, whose doings have been played upon this stage. Lo, masters, here the happy recompense which God doth give you for your gentle silence.
And all praise and thanks be given to God. Amen. And thus it ends. I let that run through because it felt like it would be unfair to the scene to stop it because it kept going. I'm just going to say off the bat, Satan, bit of a wimp, as it turns out.
Yeah, well, you see,
Pretty
just
much.
overcome by the goodness.
Bottled out.
Yeah, I've got it written. Even Satan gets sad sometimes.
Yes, you.
But badass angel,
Yeah.
complete role reversal there, actually. It's quite. I'll tell you what was interesting about that scene, though, just to kind of jump straight in there.
Yeah.
As I was listening to it, it was interesting to see the different power dynamics textually happening. Even as it didn't matter who was reading it. It was quite clear that there were so many emotional conflicts, and I think a lot of texts don't always capture the rawness as well as this text does. I just love the rawness of it all, and that little conflab between him and Satan. My goodness me, I was like, okay, who's gonna win this one?
Well, it's
But
interesting because it's not quite a conversation. It's more like Satan is the
no,
commentary team, isn't it?
Yeah, he's up in the box.
I was sort of following on from, and this is a total layering onto the text rather than following it. But, with that line earlier about the angel being there to witness it, I almost had in the background this idea that, there's a physical fight going on between the angel and Satan. Because the scene is broken down into lots of units. So they arrive, he goes and sits in a corner to pray. We then jump cut to Sara doing something similar, knowing something's wrong but doesn't know what, which the dialogue segues, my God, oh my God, between them. The two, they're saying similar things. So we then go to Abraham, and Abraham is having this dark night of the soul. It's Garden of Gethsemane crossover here, which I don't think we have in any others versions from English traditions. So it's a mini temptation scene in its in a way, and yeah, it's. And then, of course, he has to then go and start talking to Isaac, and then we hit very similar beats to other plays. That is all that sort of thing of, who are you going to kill? You're going to kill me, Dad. Don't kill me. But we got to obey God. Hurry up, Dad. And what Abraham and Isaac's doing does play around and dance around a lot. Sara first.
I had a question really, but I'm actually thinking it might feed quite well into this idea if the angel is there or appears a lot earlier than he actually speaks. I was slightly confused by the Satan line I had. Well, the speech he had, it was like, well, then Isaac shall die, and we, what will ensue thereof, shall after see. Fine, that's fine. And then he has this line, oh, false old hag, thou makest me soft to groan. And I'm like, who's he saying that to? I didn't really quite know what to do with it. But it just occurred, I don't know. Who is he referring? Who is the hag? I don't.
I think it might just be talking about Abraham there, and it's just a slightly weird choice of words.
Okay.
And I don't know whether it's groan, whether it's to feel sad, or whether he just wants to vomit. The goodness is making him physically ill. Oh God, or just stop talking.
Right, okay. So it's not like he's been assailed. He's not suddenly been assailed by a heavenly presence. Okay.
No, I don't think so. Again, that's the whole thing about the angel. That's saying I'm very much putting on top of it. I don't think that's actually what the text is doing. But it's just a thought for staging purposes of playing around with this because, it invites it. Alan, I saw next, and then Lois.
Yeah, I mean, my thought on the hag thing, Abraham is referred to as haggard earlier.
Oh, yes,
Ah,
So
yes.
I think that may be
Haggard.
it. The way I was seeing
Mm.
staging this was effectively if you have all of these characters sitting discreetly apart on the stage the whole time, and effectively you just bring up the light in the area, which would make the dream sequence speech from Sara work. And I don't think it is a dialogue between Abraham and Satan.
Hmm.
It's just two separate speeches which do happen to overlap.
I think Satan is reacting to Abraham, but
Yeah.
Abraham can't hear him. I like the
Yeah.
idea that maybe he's whispering it in a subconscious way.
Yeah.
That he's hearing bits of it.
The other one is, and I'm trying to remember which of the several Abraham and Isaacs we worked on it was, but there was one where Isaac had got, there was almost, of course, oh, for God's sake, Daddy, get on with it.
Yeah, I think that might be the Broom play.
I think
slash
it was,
Chester.
yeah.
I mean, they're actually very similar. They're essentially the same text.
I mean, it really was a, look, you're going to do it, get on with it.
Yeah.
Stop mucking around.
He's played this slightly strange psychopath game before.
As
how
victim.
Yeah. Yeah, it is interesting, but I'll come back to that. Lois.
Yeah, it's an interesting idea having the good angel present there. I mean, it's the kind of thing that probably happened in other plays, although we don't, I think, get that many examples of it. But the fact that it happens in Dr. Faustus, you know, that there's a good angel and evil angel, and that they quite often come on and comment on things, makes me think that, you know, this could be a sort of prototype for it. The only thing is, I just don't know how much the author is trying to create suspense. I mean, anybody who's read the Bible knows what's going to happen, but he does almost talk in the prologue and epilogue as if his audience might not know about this. You know, he asks them at the beginning of the prologue to be quiet, and then at the end he says, "And this is your reward for being so quiet." You know, this is why you've got to sit there in unusual silence for all this time, because you've been able to see this play. So I don't know. I mean, certainly part of the Reformation was the desire that the Bible should be known to people. Maybe there was a feeling that they didn't know this, because it would make a big difference. I mean, if you had the good angel there all the time, there'd be the feeling that, okay, just wait for him to say something. Come on, speak, stop it.
I've said this before, that the Abraham and Isaac plays feel a bit like a horror film, you know, and you know the beats in a horror film. You know that, you know, something bad is coming, and that sense of doom crawling over it. I don't know that emotionally this is packing as much of a punch as some of the others. It's doing all of the same beats, but I'm not quite sure it's quite hitting the notes in quite the same way. I'm finding maybe it's because of Satan. Slightly distancing me from what is going on between Abraham and Isaac. I mean, he disappears at the vital moments so that they can get on with the narrative as is. But you know, that sense of anticipation of the terrible thing happening is what most of them do. Not all, some of them just go straight to you're out in the wilderness, bye bye son. But yeah, that sense of building towards it and playing with the dramatic ironies. I don't know if it plays with the dramatic ironies very much. Again, that's something else other ones do, where they're going, "Daddy, where are we going?" You know, it does have the daddy, where's the sheep that we're going to kill? I think in one he sort of figures it out before he's actually told, and that there's more of a creeping realization. I mean, if we're thinking about a French staging, because I say we don't know if there ever was an English staging, whether it was just a translation for publication, which it probably was. Certainly by that point, you know, 1577, you don't get much religious drama after then. You would have separate entrances, potentially, depending on context, which would represent where you are entering, the scene you are entering into is happening. So Abraham and Isaac can remain on stage because may have entered from a specific area, and therefore where they are is that location. So when Sara comes on to do her speech, all she has to do is enter from their house, and the audience would get that. And when Alan was talking about, you know, doing everything with spotlights, in a sense, that's the early modern convention for essentially that kind of effect and in terms of conveying to the audience where people are. I mean, that's not universal, but that's a convention that's, I say, much more based on the continent practice rather than our own. So yeah, it does really interesting things. It's a shame we don't get Sara at the end and a tidy up there. I kind of feel she's left. I really love her speech there. So much about this is really modern. The way the stagecraft works and the way it moves at certain points. I think Lois's point about Dr. Faustus is I was thinking that as well, of just going, there's lots of little bits in here. I'm thinking, well, it was published in 10 years earlier, so maybe, who knows? Little thoughts. I don't know if we've got any other plays where Satan does that whispering in ear kind of thing anywhere else. We've certainly got Satan interacting with people, but in a very overt way. So that's interesting.
That's really very odd. I mean, to have him present without anybody knowing that he's there, and the temptations. I don't think that these various ideas that Abraham has are coming from Satan, because in fact they're all good ideas. You know, he has this faith in God. He loves his son. These are all perfectly good motives. They just happen to be in conflict with each other at this point. It's hard to think that any of that could be whispered to him by Satan. But
there's only one line that feels like it could, which is the no, never do so. That's the only one that feels like it could be whispered in his ear. The rest do not compute with what Abraham's doing at all.
Yeah. I think the difficulty with it, I mean, as far as moving, being emotionally involving, is just that it's so long. I mean, Abraham, I think the author wants Abraham to run through every possible thing that one could think or say on this subject. You know, all the rationalizations he could possibly have, and all of the replies to them. And it's, you know, there's just so much of it. It's it's quite intellectual in that sense.
I mean, there's two responses to that. I find, first of all, you know, we can always cut it. You know, never complain if a play is too long, so long as it's cuttable. It may not be very cuttable because the way the thoughts are actually very well constructed. It's quite difficult to leap without potentially doing damage. The other one, I'm not sure it is too long. You may have felt doing it, but I felt very engaged throughout. I was, you know, expecting this play to feel like, oh, please, dear God, kill me now. But it's actually been really very light, a light touch all the way through. And, you know, I think there's a payoff of Abraham's moment of darkness with Satan sitting over his shoulder could be really affecting, actually more effective than the bit with Isaac, where I think there are actually slightly better examples of that moment. But the Satan, you know, Abraham's moment of darkness, his Gethsemane moment, I think is really interesting. Several hands. Alan first.
Yeah, the only bit that I think we may have lost, some materials got lost somewhere along the way, is the Agnus Ex Machina on page 23, where Abraham takes the sheep, which has had no prior mention at all.
Yeah, but the angel just says it's just magic. I mean, I
yeah,
don't know.
But it's not mentioned by anybody. You know, it just feels like it may only be a couplet missing, but it needs some sort of explanation as to how it's got there, even if it's just a flash box goes off and there's the little lamb, you know.
I don't know if it indicates an absence of text per se. I mean, we don't have a fulsome stage directions. I mean, I think that's an important point. There's an awful lot missing there. But I have to go back and look at the French, see if there are textual variations between this. He was an active translator. Was old Arthur. He did an awful lot, apparently.
The Metamorphoses.
So, you know, he knew his onions. Sascha, hand was up earlier.
Yes, just to kind of agree with Alan really on something missing on that score, but it's nothing major there. I think I want to come back more to the length of the piece. You know, I mean, I agree with you there, actually, Robert. I don't think if you were to cut, I think if you were to cut it, you'd lose a lot of the really lovely sort of dynamics of the piece, and you'd miss the language. And I think if you did try and stage it, there's a lot of scope to put it in either a modern context or even keep it in the original costumes of the era. I think it's very relatable, and likewise, I was very engaged. And even the casting that you've done is very neatly positioned, actually, throughout today. I just wanted to observe that.
I'd have to say it's a matter of my brain was sort of thinking away and going things we might do with this. I mean, I think it would work very well in a modern theatre. I think, you know, because it's asking for lighting to change your location and to move things quite quickly. I mean, it's a big question of what the music does to it. You know, what you do with those songs. The songs are the only point where you might have to change the writing to make it fit what you want to do musically. You know, some minor massaging. But it has its advantages. It has some disadvantages. As I say, I don't think it quite appeals with the punch emotionally that some others do. But it's, yeah, I was dreading this. I thought it was going to be awful. And it's not at all. It works, and I think it does what it wants to do. Yeah, it's another successful Abraham play. Damn, we've only got about 6, at least. So an evening of Abrahams. Yeah, let's just do them all in one depressing sequence.
In aid of the Samaritans.
Yeah. Okay, we're hitting extra time, so I'll just go around the room briefly for any final thoughts. So, Alan, have you got anything final to throw in?
I think this works quite nicely. I mean, I think it would be interesting to play this against one of the other Abraham plays, just to look at different ways that the same story is handled by different people. You know, and you've got this, as you say, from mid-16th century, whereas Broome is probably, what, 2 centuries earlier?
Yeah, something
in origin.
Yeah. Lois, any final thoughts?
I think that is a very good idea. I think that would be the most interesting way to do it, actually, is with one of the, the shorter cycle plays, and perhaps one of the ones that makes Isaac more of a charming child and gives him a bit more to do. And then this one, I mean, I liked it better than I thought I was going to when I was skimming through it, where my main reaction just was that it goes on and on. You know, that Abraham just talks far too much about the whole situation. Of course, once you're doing the talking, you enjoy it. It's funny how it always seems to happen.
Sascha, final thoughts?
No, nothing to add apart from keep the casting setup that you've got with this one, and I think it would work. But I'd love to see this actually staged, and again, would love to do this. Would love to do this play. So there you go.
God, will we never find a really crap play? Okay, Sara, final thoughts.
Well, this is my first Abraham. I gather other Abrahams may be available, but I really enjoyed this. I thought it tripped along. I thought your comment about how Abrahams quite often have a horror film quality to them, I found that quite interesting. I didn't find this with this, but I did at one point think about Apollo 13, just because that's one of those films where you know precisely what's going to happen. You know it turns, spoilers people, you know it turns out all right, but it doesn't really matter, because what you're interested in is seeing how you get there, and all the emotion that engages you as they go through their journey. And I actually was really engaged by this in the same way, actually. I mean, okay, I knew it was all going to turn out well. There wasn't really much sense of creeping dread,
but I did really enjoy Abraham's Long Dark Night of the Soul. And yeah, for me, I was engaged and it worked. And yeah, I'd like to see it staged as well. And actually, I really that Satan, especially that first Satan speech, that came at me out of nowhere, and I really enjoyed doing that. My God, that was a great speech. Like, I'd love to see that on stage. I'd love to do it on stage, but I'd love to see it. Yeah.
Yes, it's surprisingly hard. I say surprisingly, it's very hard to write bad dialogue for Satan. It's like death. As well, death and Satan, you just can't write bad dialogue for them, or if you do, you've really messed up.
Use caps locks.
Yeah. Practic reference there for everyone. Yes. For say it was essentially a closet drama that turned out to come out really rather well. It fills in another gap in our understanding of the kind of idea of theatre culture in the 1570s, and at a time when there isn't actually that much to go on. Surprisingly, there's a little bit of a dip from before we start getting masses and masses of stuff in the 1590s. So even though it probably wasn't staged in England at the time, it's out there, it's printed, it's part of a mass media outlet that is printing, and therefore perhaps has more of a reach than other plays that we don't even have. That may have had more successful stage time at the time. So all sorts of interesting questions this throws up. I'd just like to thank all the readers for their work today, and all that remains is for me to say goodbye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.